Welcome everyone for joining the Department of Justice grant webinar with the Office of Congressman Lucarello. My name is Monica Garcia. I am the grant coordinator at the Congressman's office. Today we have a Jessa Wilcox with the Bureau of Justice Assistance at the U.S. Department of Justice, and we also have Cheryl Thomas, and she's with the COPS Office Division. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Jessa. If you want to say a few words, or if you just want to get right started into the presentation, it's up to you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, everyone. I guess you could just pull up the slides, Monica, and I'll just start. Great, thank you. As Monica said, my name is Jessa Wilcox. I'm a senior policy advisor at the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and I'm honored and thankful to be invited here today to go over some of our grants and a little bit about BJA and what to expect in the upcoming year. So you can go to the next slide, please. So BJA, the Bureau of Justice Assistance, is part of the Office of Justice Programs, which is within the U.S. Department of Justice. OJP provides a wide range of services to the criminal justice community, specifically to state, local, and tribal jurisdictions and community-based organizations in the forms of grants, training and technical assistance, which I might refer to as TTA, and research. I'm going to speak now about some BJA funding opportunities, although there are other OJP offices shown on this slide that offer additional grants and programs to support our shared public safety mission. The Office for Violence Against Women and the COPS Office are two other DOJ components that provide important resources for the criminal justice community. And I'm pleased to be joined here today with my colleague from the COPS Office. Next slide, please. So BJA provides two types of grants to the field, discretionary and formula. For discretionary grants, BJA will write a solicitation or an RFP, and applicants will apply directly to OJP BJA in addressing the requirements of the solicitation. These grants are typically competitive, and awards are based on a two-part review process. There's a preliminary review to ensure that the application is complete and meets the eligibility requirements, and then most applications go through a peer review process. For most programs, we do receive more applications than we have funding for, so we try to fund the strongest proposals based on an objective review criteria. So then there's formula grants, and the formula grants are awarded on a non-competitive basis. This usually means that every eligible applicant will receive some funding. The amount of funding varies based on a variety of factors, which can include things such as population or crime rates. Most formula grant programs are administered by state administering agencies, or SAAs. So if you don't have an active relationship with your SAA, please start one today. And if you don't know who your SAA is, you can find a complete contact list on BJA's website. Next slide, please. All right, so now I'm going to get into some fiscal year 2023 funding opportunities. The new fiscal year for the federal government starts on October 1st, 2022, and that will be fiscal year 2023. We are currently in the process of notifying everyone who will receive fiscal year 2022 awards, and we'll be posting information about these, about the FY 2023 funding opportunities later this fall and through the winter on BJA's website. So this is a great time to be thinking about this because nothing is posted yet, and you can really do some research and figure out what grants are best for you. So first, I'm just going to start with the Edward Burr Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, the JAG Award. JAG Award is OJP's flagship grant program and the leading source of federal criminal justice funding to state, local, and tribal jurisdictions. There are 8 broad purpose areas you can see on the slide: funding for law enforcement, prosecution and courts, crime prevention and education, corrections and community corrections, drug treatment and enforcement, planning, evaluation, and technology improvement, crime victim and witness programs, and mental health programs. And there are both local and state JAG awards available. Next slide, please. Another big source of funding is the Stop School Violence program. This program provides funding to support threat assessment, mental health training, anti-bullying training, and technology solutions, such as, for example, an anonymous reporting system. The ultimate goal of this program is to provide students and teachers with resources to recognize and prevent school violence. The COPS office administers a companion program that's focused on door locks, cameras, and other target hardening measures. Applicants for the Stop School Violence program include state, local, and tribal governments, nonprofit organizations, and institutes of higher education. And the estimated number of awards, that was what we estimated in FY 2022, and we hope that again in 2023 it will be similar. Next slide, please. Another program area is Connect and Protect, which is a law enforcement behavioral health response program. This supports cross-system collaboration to improve public safety and health responses to and outcomes for individuals with mental health or co-occurring disorders who come into contact with the justice system. This program is focused really on building and implementing collaborative law enforcement and mental health responses, such as co-responder teams, crisis intervention teams, and integrated community providers. Next slide. Another area that BJA funds is in body-worn cameras. Body-worn cameras are increasingly seen as must-haves for many law enforcement agencies and communities. Through the BWC program, BJA funds the purchase of body-worn cameras, but this purchase is implemented as part of a comprehensive body-worn camera program. There's deployment policies, digital storage costs and strategies, privacy concerns, and many other aspects. BJA also has a body-worn camera toolkit and clearinghouse website for agencies that are interested in planning and implementing a body-worn camera program. Next slide. The collaborative crisis response is a transdisciplinary crisis response training to educate and prepare law enforcement and correctional officers so they're equipped to appropriately interact with people who have behavioral health conditions or disabilities in the course of completing their job responsibilities. This program is tailored for state, local, tribal law enforcement, and correctional entities. It helps them plan, develop, and deploy a best practice training program for officers to include in their community, develop a strategy for deploying officers trained in crisis response during the time of crisis, and evaluate, improve, and sustain community engagement in a best practice program. Next slide. This next program, the Crime Gun Intelligence Centers program, it's an important tool for communities that are experiencing high gun-related violent crime. The purpose is to encourage local jurisdictions to work with their ATF partners, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, to identify firearms that are used unlawfully and their sources, with the ultimate goal of prosecuting perpetrators engaged in violent crime. The Crime Gun Intelligence Center utilizes the National Integrated Ballistics Imaging Network, which some of you might be familiar with. And just for example, awards for this program are up to $700,000 in FY 2022. And so we hope similar, if not higher amounts for 2023. Next slide, please. Another example is an intellectual property enforcement program. It's designed to protect public health, safety, and our nation's economy from counterfeit and pirated goods. Funding under this program can be used to cover expenses, to establish task forces to conduct investigations, forensic analysis, or acquiring the equipment to conduct investigations and prosecutions. The aim of this program is to prevent, deter, and identify criminal violations of intellectual property laws. Next slide. Now I'm going to turn briefly to a program administered under BJA's Forensic Science portfolio, the Sexual Assault Kit Initiative, or SAKI. And forgive me on this slide, there's still the information for the FY 2022 solicitation. If you just want to use that link, that solicitation is no longer live. Those awards have been made, but it just kind of gives you a sense of what a solicitation looks like. SAKI is critical to enhancing the criminal justice response to sexual assault and ensuring justice for victims. Funding under this program not only helps link victims to advocates and needed services, but also helps jurisdictions implement best practices and comprehensive reform to help bring perpetrators to justice, and increase safety in communities by preventing future sexual assaults. Eligible applicants for this program are law enforcement agencies and prosecutors' offices. Next slide. So in addition to direct grants to the field, BJA funds training and technical assistance providers, TTA providers, to support the work of criminal justice practitioners and agencies, government officials, community-based organizations, or citizen advocates in state, local, and tribal justice communities. The scope of a TTA engagement can be targeted and discrete or pretty large scale, depending on the need. Next slide. And BJA offers TTA through the National Training and Technical Assistance Center, also known as NTAC. This provides no-cost training. So if you have a TA request, you can receive technical assistance for free and specialized guidance, both in person and virtually, on a wide variety of criminal justice topics, ranging from things such as crime prevention to mental health to adjudication. NTAC assists a wide range of justice agencies, including prosecutors' offices, police departments, city and county commissioners, and corrections departments. And on this slide, there's the BJA website, but then there's also a link to the website directly for NTAC. Next slide, please. So those are just a few examples of the programs that BJA oversees. As I mentioned earlier, funding opportunities for FY 2023 will be posted in the form of solicitations on the BJA website later on this fall and through the winter. But before I end, I just wanted to highlight some of BJA's resources that are available for all applicants and hopefully will be a resource for you if you end up applying for a grant. So first is just the BJA website. I suggest you access the BJA website for various information on all of our programs. And in the top right of the web page, you'll see the subscribe link that will enable you to sign up for future electronic notifications on funding opportunities and other just really important information. Next, there's the OJP grant funding resources. Through this link, it helps you access information such as the funding opportunities and the other grant bureaus within OJP. So not just BJA, but all OJP wide. Next is grants.gov. And this is a great resource to be aware of if you're looking for grant funding opportunities across the entire federal government. For example, DOJ through OJP administers corrections and reentry funding opportunities under the Second Chance Act. But our partners at the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services also provide similar grant opportunities to assist returning people. So use this resource to make sure you're seeing all of the opportunities available across the federal government for your issue. And then next is Just Grants. When you're applying for a grant, it's a two-step process. The first, you apply through grants.gov, and then you apply with just a few forms, and then the full application is through Just Grants. And Just Grants is a streamlined end-to-end grants management system that provides applicants and then grantees with an improved user experience through key parts of the grants management lifestyle. We are continuing to enhance the system's functionality to try to bring even more benefit to applicants, grant recipients, and to us at DOJ. Next is the Office of Justice Programs Award Data. This is a resource that provides you with details about the grants awarded by OJP in past fiscal years. You have the ability to search and filter using various parameters, including fiscal year, program office, and location, just to get a sense of who's received what awards and where and what for. Finally, NIJ's Crime Solutions. This is a web-based clearinghouse of programs and practices that have been rated in terms of effectiveness in addressing different criminal justice issues. And this can be a useful resource when you are applying for grants. Next slide, please. So this is a little premature, but this will be useful when you are applying. If you have questions, anything about grants.gov, there is a hotline and an email address and a web page. And the hotline operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, except on holidays. So please take advantage of this assistance if you need help. Next slide. And this is the same for Just Grants technical support. It's the same type of assistance. It has slightly more limited hours, but still should be a really helpful resource if you have any questions. Next slide. And here's another resource that enables you to access previous webinar recordings, transcripts, slides. Many will be on the grant process in general, but when the new solicitations are posted, there will be webinars on specific funding opportunities, sometimes by solicitation, sometimes by program area such as corrections. And so you can find all this information under this website. Next slide. Just a request to stay connected with us. You can put in your text, you can receive social media, and of course, our website. And then on the next slide, there's one last. If you have any other questions at all about the grant process, we have a response center. This is for all of your general funding questions. They have, again, a toll-free number, email, a web chat. Their hours are 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. So this is just a brief overview, but thank you for this opportunity, and please be on the lookout as we post new funding opportunities. The solicitations will be on our website, and there'll be many more opportunities for webinars and chances to learn. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, I guess, Monica.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessa. We'll make sure to put this information, the contact information, in the chat box as well. So let me bring up Cheryl's presentation 1 second.
And I think we're going to do Q&A at the end, so I will stick around after Cheryl's presentation in case anyone has any questions.
Correct. Okay. Okay, it's all yours, Cheryl.
Okay, great. Thanks, Monica. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased to be here to tell you a little bit about the COPS office and the grants and funding and other resources that we have available to you. We are in a situation similar to what was described for the Office of Justice Programs, that we're at the end of our cycle right now. We are just about to announce all of the funding awards to be made with our FY22 funding. So this will give you an idea of what we will have in, coming up, hopefully, once we get our appropriations for FY23. Next slide, please. Just a little bit of background about the COPS office for those of you who aren't familiar with it. Community-oriented policing services, and everything that we do, all of our grants and our resources are aimed at advancing public safety through community policing. So far, since our inception in 1994, we've invested more than $14 billion across the U.S. for not only hiring officers, which is what we are known for the most, that's been the largest amount of our funding, but also other funding initiatives, technology, crime prevention initiatives, and training and technical assistance. Next slide. Again, just a little bit more about our agency and where we fall in the sort of bureaucracy that can be the federal government. And just it does mention in the third bullet there what our funding situation was for FY22. We had $511 million. And like I said, that's all just about to be awarded in the coming weeks. Next slide. Thank you. So our funding can really go to support state, local, tribal, territorial law enforcement in 3 general ways. We've got our grants, and those are the programs that I'm going to go into one by one in just a minute. We've got our training, and we've got our technical assistance. And again, training can be similar to what was described for Office of Justice Programs. That can be in person, it can be on-site train the trainer courses. We've got a bunch of topics that are available in person and online through our COPS training portal. That's something that's relatively new in the past couple of years. We're very proud of. We've got a number of courses available through the training portal. Everything is free of charge through that portal. And then technical assistance, I will go into that in just a bit as well, but that's really the in-depth, tailored to individual agencies type of assistance that can sometimes be needed. In addition to that, we also have our publications and our reports and our knowledge products on our website. Everything, again, is free of charge. We don't print everything. A lot of them are for download, but the ones that we do print, we will send out without any cost. We've got hundreds of guidebooks and best practices sorts of guides on every possible topic under the sun in terms of policing and the law enforcement field. Next slide, please. This is just a snapshot of what we had available. I'm going to go into these one by one, but this is what we had for this the fiscal year that's just ending now, 2022. And I'm not going to read this off because you'll see it as we go through each one. So let's start with the next slide. We can, in between, we've got our, just a little description of how we are easily able to align with administration priorities. Things shift, the law enforcement needs shift. With that, the administration often has priority areas. So just a little bit of what we're looking at in 2022, we will be prioritizing applications supporting community violence intervention. We are going to require, or we have required everybody who has applied for our funding to submit a comprehensive community policing plan. And then we also like to know the areas that will be targeted with our hiring funding. It's the way that we not only direct our funding to administration priorities and the needs of the field, but then we can also see where technical assistance is most needed. Next slide, please. So I will start with the COPS hiring program. Like I said, this is sort of our bread and butter. This is what we have been known for the most, just because that has been the majority of our funding since 1994. It is to assist law enforcement agencies in hiring or rehiring career sworn full-time law enforcement officers to increase their community policing capacity. State, local, tribal, territorial law enforcement agencies can all apply as long as they have primary law enforcement authority. So they're the ones that answer the call when somebody calls 911. Funding this year, we had $156.5 million available. And again, that's what we're about to award any day now. That funding will fund up to 75% of the entry-level salary and fringe benefits for one or more positions. And each position does have a cap of federal funding of $125,000 per position. And that's over a 3-year period, 3 years of funding. So it's not $125,000 each year. That's the max per officer position. And it says 3 years of funding over a 5-year award period. What that means is we know that not everybody can be up and running on day one. People don't have recruits in the academy that they're ready to start on salary right away. It takes time. Officers can leave during, that they may be hired and then leave the position, and there's a vacancy that needs to be filled. So having the extra time in there, making it a 5-year award period, but it covers 3 years of funding, just gives agencies time to make sure that they can expend all 3 years of funding. There is a minimum 25% cash match. That's a local cash match, unless there is a waiver granted due to severe fiscal distress. And that's something that you would apply for at the time of application. You submit information if you're requesting a waiver of the local match. This year, we did not have a cap on the number of officer positions an agency could request. That changes year to year, depending on the funding situation and sort of what we're hearing from the field and feedback. Hiring categories, as I said, it's newly hired officers, or it can also be for rehired officers who have been laid off or are scheduled to be laid off to retain those positions. And then the retention requirement. At the conclusion of the 3 years of federal funding, we do require that agencies retain the officer positions funded for an additional 12 months. Next slide. So part of the COPS hiring program application requires agencies that are applying to identify the problem that they're going to focus on with this funding and how the COPS funded officer positions would be focused. There are 6 categories listed, as you'll see. In previous years, if any of you previously applied going back in the between 2010, 2017, that range, we used to have a much larger number of problem areas, and we sort of rolled them up into bigger categories to make it easier for all applicants. So of the 6 you see, 4 of them, the top 4 are highlighted in blue. Those are priority consideration areas, either because that has been a congressional request or instruction in our appropriations, or it's a administration priority. So this year, the 4 priority consideration, which is really bonus points when we're reviewing the application, are for violent crime, combating hate and domestic extremism, police-based response to persons in crisis, and building legitimacy and trust. The other 2 are just other categories, but they don't receive sort of priority bonus points during the rating process. And that last one, other/innovations in community policing, is sort of the catch-all for other problem areas. For example, if you wanted school resource officers, that would sort of fall into that category. Next slide, please. Going into our school violence prevention program, this is the companion program to what Jessa mentioned. Theirs is the Stop School Violence. Ours is SVPP. And as you mentioned, it focuses on target hardening, but there's a few other things in there. So we've got coordination with law enforcement, training for officers to prevent student violence, and then the target hardening area. We've got metal detectors, locks, lighting, camera systems. There's a variety of other things listed in the application, but those are sort of the most popular areas in terms of applications, other deterrent measures. Technology for expedited notification of local law enforcement during an emergency. So sort of the panic button systems. And then a catch-all, sort of other measures, anything that didn't really fall neatly into those 4 areas that provide a significant improvement in security. And our funding under the SVPP program goes directly to states, local government, tribal, and other public agencies, which includes local law enforcement, that includes school districts. Schools do not individually apply for this funding. A school district can, but not one individual school. Next slide, please. So the funding situation for 2022 was $53 million through the appropriations, and then through the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that was just passed, I want to say in mid to late June, we received an additional $20 million. So we'll be making up to $73 million available through this. These awards cap at $500,000 each. Again, there is a local match. It's the 75% of costs up to $500,000 with the minimum 25% cash match. And again, agencies can apply for a waiver based on severe fiscal distress. Next slide. This program and the next program I'll discuss are a little bit different from everything else that we offer, because these are state level only programs. So the Anti-Heroin Task Force program is, as it says there, for investigative purposes related to distribution of heroin, fentanyl, carfentanil, any other illegal opioids. So that would also go for cover unlawful distribution of prescription opioids. It does not fund things like Narcan. It does not fund treatment. It is for investigative purposes. These awards are made, like I said, directly to state level law enforcement agencies. So each state, there would only be one applicant per state. But the reason that we want to make sure everybody's aware of it is that state level offices must partner with local agencies in addressing, in this case, the anti-heroin efforts. So we always encourage local law enforcement agencies to make sure that their state agency, I believe in California, it would be California Department of Justice, that they're applying for this funding. So for the anti-heroin program this year, we had $35 million available, and there was a maximum of $4 million per award. Next slide. The anti-methamphetamine program is very similar, again, for investigative purposes, but this one focuses on methamphetamine. Same with state level law enforcement receiving the funding, but partnering with local agencies. And in this case, these actually have a minimum award. They have to, agency have to apply for at least 1 million, but there's a maximum of 2 million per award, and we have 15 million available this year. Next slide. This is the one program that we've actually awarded. As of yesterday, we have made our Tribal Resources Grant Program funding available for tribal specific. This is tribal specific funding for federally recognized tribes. It's for officers, again, hiring or rehiring if necessary. It's also for basic equipment and training. And you can see the numbers on there, what we awarded, well, 29.5 million. We also have 3 million that we make available for the Tribal Access Program to make all of the systems like NCIC available for tribes that need to get on those systems. Next slide. Collaborative reform. This is a program that agencies do not directly apply for, but the funding is made available as part of our targeted technical assistance. Agencies that are experiencing issues can come directly to our office and our center, which I'll describe, I believe, on the next slide, the Collaborative Reform Initiative Technical Assistance Center. There are 3 levels of collaborative reform assistance. And the next slide, I really should reorder them. I'm gonna have to go back and forth. This is sort of the basic level, the what is available through what we call CRITAC. If there's an issue that you are dealing with in your agency that you need some help with in terms of how to address, this is free of charge technical assistance that we provide. And it can be on a number of topics, and it's all on the website that you see at the bottom of that slide, but it covers everything from if you're having recruitment and retention problems, if you're having organizational issues where you're trying to address an organizational systemic issue, if you're having problems with populations experiencing homelessness and how to assist persons in that category. It's anything and everything you can imagine. And the technical assistance is tailored in that if you just need to know where to look, if you're just looking for some of the resources, some of the publications, some of the background, we've got people that will point you that way. If you need something more in depth, if you need peer-to-peer sort of consultation with other agencies that have been in a similar situation and how they address the problems, we can set that up. It can be on-site technical assistance. It can be virtual. We've got a wide variety. So that is sort of the basic level. If you want to go back one slide, Monica, thank you so much. These are the two levels, the next two that I'll mention that are a bit more in depth. We have responding to critical incidents. If there's been something, it's the critical response part of it. For example, we've got a team working in Uvalde, but if there's a specific critical incident that you need an after action assessment on, looking at what happened and putting out a report, describing it and how to address issues like that in the future, that's the critical response program. And then what's listed there's the original collaborative reform initiative. That's in depth if you have an agency that really has systemic issues that you want addressed, and you definitely want on-site assistance that's over an extended period of time. These are 3-month, 6-month reviews with a very detailed report that comes out with recommendations after that. That would be that level of assistance. And in each case, for any of these that I've mentioned, reach out to the COPS office through the websites that are listed, and we are happy to get you connected with the right people. So we can now move forward 2 slides. Perfect. Our community policing development program, this covers a range of issues to advance the practice of community policing. It's through innovative strategies and best practices and new approaches to addressing problems in the field. So this funding is very, we were told very specifically where the funding goes to each year. So you'll see in 2022, we had $10 million for crisis intervention teams, $15 million for de-escalation training, $8 million to assist agencies with accreditation, $5 million for microgrants. Microgrants, I'll mention, are just, it's seed money if there's a very small problem that you want to address. And I say small because those have a cap ranging each year between 100,000 and 200,000. And if there's a specific idea that you've got that you want to put into place, for example, you've got an idea for a great after-school program for the hours between 3 and 6, when it can be, when you've got a population of kids that may not have any place else to go, and you'd like to get law enforcement involved with working with those kids, and you just need a little bit of seed money to start it out. This is a program that you would apply through. And then the last one, we've got $2 million for to give to a provider to provide for tolerance, diversity, and anti-bias training. Next slide. This is one that we're very proud of, our Law Enforcement Mental Health and Wellness Act. It's for improving mental health and wellness services in law enforcement agencies. It covers officer emotional and mental health, suicide prevention programming, other support services, family support services for law enforcement. We know that there's a huge need in the field for this, and we're very proud to be able to offer what we can to assist our nation's law enforcement officers. So this year we had, I want to say $8 million available for this program. Next slide. And I just want to mention our preparing for active shooter situations training. This is not training that we make, not funding that we award directly to agencies. We fund one provider, and then they make, again, free of charge, active shooter training available. And there's a website there where you can go and get connected with our training provider. We use Alert, has been the recipient in the past, the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center in Texas. And it's for, as you can see on the slide there, active shooter and other violent threats training. It's cross-disciplinary. It is not just for law enforcement. It also covers all first responders. So it's law enforcement, fire, and EMT training. And it can be on site. It can be if we have we encourage agencies to band together and create little regional trainings that they can then send, alert can send people on site and provide that training. It can be train the trainer. It can be online. People can travel to Texas, a variety of options for active shooter training. Next slide. And this is the easiest way to find out what we've got going on. Our website has everything that I've mentioned. We also have a response center, and you've got the phone number there. We have an application process tutorial for next year. Again, right now it's just the wrong point because we're just ending the cycle, but it'll be great for next year. And we have our Facebook and Twitter and YouTube accounts. And I will be happy to take any questions.
Great. So we'll move on to the Q&A. So if anyone has any questions at all, please put them in the Q&A section. Jessa and Cheryl will do their best to answer your questions. So if someone's interested in applying for a grant through the Department of Justice, do they go to the website and all the instructions on there are there? Do they have to apply through grants.gov and just grants.gov as well? Both submit applications to both?
Yes, it's a two-step application process. The first is the grants.gov, and then it's a full application in Just Grants.
Got it. Okay.
And all of the Just Grants and grants.gov information that was in Jessa's presentation also applies to the COPS grants. So you've got it all right there.